Welcome to another special circumstances video. Today we're not really going to do a product review. It's going to be more of a sort of a philosophy overview on primarily on sheath design, sheath and holsters. So I see a lot of things when it comes to sheaths for knives, especially. I'd say probably the biggest offenders on this is production knife makers, where you see a really nice knife but then comes with just this abortion of a sheath, where it's very much an afterthought. They really didn't look like they put any real thought into what good sheath design is, and you end up with stuff that's almost unusable. I try to generally make sheaths as unobtrusive and user-friendly as possible, and also as compact as possible, which is, I guess, part of the unobtrusiveness. So I tend to use relatively thin kydex. You can see this one right here. This is the 0.6 or 0.06, sorry. Whereas a lot of the stuff you'll see out there is oftentimes it's the 0.093, which is some of the thicker grades you can get. This one is a little bit of a departure from most of my preferred type of sheaths, which uses the smaller rivets. This one was made deliberately with the larger ones, though, in order to accommodate the use of something like a tech lock, which requires you to use the larger rivets. It adds considerably to the bulk of the sheath, and I really don't like it, but I still try to keep it as minimal as possible. You can see how there's not a whole lot of wasted material here. And it's still overall a fairly compact sheath. I tend to make most of my sheaths for use with an inside the waistband static cord setup. So I mount them generally with this foamed rubber. Helps keep it in place inside your waistband and sort of stops from moving around too much. Also adds just a little bit of comfort sometimes, depending on how you're carrying it. But you can see this pretty much as compact as possible to get with this type of rivet. So, and also notice here that the sheath does not obstruct access to the handle. I can get a full fighting grip on this knife without having to adjust my grip in any way, shape, or form, pretty much no matter how I grab it. And that's how a sheath really should be. I mean, even if it's just a utility knife, this whole idea of only being able to grab the back part of the handle, I really don't like it. I think it's somewhat retarded, if you'll pardon my French. Yes, I know that's not French, but bear with me here. So, looking at a slightly different way of making a sheath here. This is for a variation of the Hobbs you see there. This one, despite being a noticeably larger blade, wider, somewhat longer, the sheath is basically the same size. There's really no difference in width. And that's because I use here a somewhat different approach. What this is actually a vinyl coated Kevlar. And this allows me to make the sheath a lot more compact without really sacrificing anything as far as strength goes. This is a very high test Kevlar cord. And then I'm using a single rivet up here just for providing an attachment point. And again, covered with the foamed rubber. And yet again, you can see the full easy access to the grip. And a very tight fit, very positive. I mean, you can't even hear it rattle or anything at all. So, try to keep them as compact as possible, rattle as little as possible. And yeah, a sheath like this, something that is tightly fit, it is going to leave marks on the blade, but you know what? I make my knives to be used. If you don't want your knives to be used or look used, don't put them in kydex. unless you line it with something, it's gonna scuff up the knife. So, but I don't do safe queens. And here we have, for a smaller knife, again, positive retention. You can hear the snap as it comes in, comes out. This one also uses my outside the waistband attachment system. This uses shockcord. Normally I'd use the step up in thickness as far as shockcord goes. I believe that's the 1/8. This is actually thinner stuff, not really as good for it, but it's all I had left at this time, so it's what's on there. This attaches to any belt, molly gear, just snaps in like that. Once it's on there, it stays on there very nicely. I've carried knives like this for a long time. I've never had one come off my belt. Very compact, low profile, doesn't add any real weight to the knife. Stays in place on the belt, keeps it tight to the belt, and is generally as unobtrusive as physically possible. This is something I really enjoy for smaller knives like this. And like I said, it also allows you to mount it to molly gear. Basically, you would just slip the shock cord through the molly webbing and then snap it in, and it stays in place. You can do something similar with this here, this piece of shock cord here, and I can actually demonstrate it. It's a bit fiddly, so bear with me here. This will take a few seconds. And you can mount this on, well, pretty much anything molly, really. Slip it through like this. I like to do just a single turn like this and then snap it in. Stays on there pretty good. Especially once you're actually put on the rig, you know. I've actually carried it like this several times. That's a pretty good way to carry it. So that's pretty much my idea, my philosophy for sheath design. You know, keep it as compact and unobtrusive as possible, and make it functional, more than pretty, at least. I'm big on functionality as far as that goes. That's how sheaths should be made. They shouldn't get in the way of you using the tool. You know, so on that similar vein, this is a holster I made well, a while back, really. But again, pretty compact. This works both inside the waistband and outside the waistband. Made with the thin .06 Kydex. I've never had it crack. I think I've had this holster for, oh boy, well, it's going on 3 years. Probably 3, maybe even 4 years. And this has been used quite a bit. It has no cracks. I've never had the pistol come out of it when it didn't need to. And it just works, which is the way it should be. So that's the biggest thing, sort of my pet peeves as far as sheaths go, is that oftentimes they simply get in the way of using the product properly, and that's really not what a sheath should be. So compact, unobtrusive, and it doesn't get in your way. There you go. That's all I got today. Have a great day, guys.